Microphone Steve Jobs, the story of vision, failure, and triumph. Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to tell you the story of a man who changed the way we listen to music, the way we communicate, and the way we see technology. A man who showed the world that success is not a straight line, but a journey of passion, vision, and resilience. This is the story of Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was born on February 24th, 1955, in San Francisco, California. His biological parents were young college students who decided to give him up for adoption. He was adopted by a loving couple, Paul and Clara Jobs, who promised his birth mother that Steve would go to college someday. From the very beginning, Steve was a curious child. He loved to explore, take things apart, and figure out how they worked. His father, a mechanic, introduced him to electronics in their garage, a place that would later become the birthplace of Apple. Blue Book, the college dropout who chased his passion. Steve did enroll in college at Reed College in Oregon, but after just 6 months, he dropped out. He wasn't interested in formal education. He wanted to learn what inspired him, not what was required. But instead of wasting time, he stayed on campus, sleeping on friends' floors, collecting Coke bottles to buy food, and attending classes that truly interested him, like calligraphy. That calligraphy class seemed pointless at the time, but years later, it inspired the beautiful typography and design that Apple computers became famous for. Steve said, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward." Laptop computer, the birth of Apple in a garage. In 1976, at just 21 years old, Steve Jobs teamed up with his friend Steve Wozniak to build a computer. They started Apple in his parents' garage with the dream of making computers small enough for everyday people. Their first product, the Apple I, was hand-built and sold to hobbyists. Then came the Apple II, which became one of the first highly successful personal computers. By 1980, Apple went public. Steve Jobs, the college dropout, was a millionaire at 25. But success didn't stop him. He had a bigger vision, to create not just computers, but technology that was simple, elegant, and life-changing. Rocket rise and fall, getting fired from Apple. Steve was brilliant, but he was also intense and demanding. As Apple grew, so did tensions within the company. In 1985, just 9 years after he founded Apple, Steve Jobs was forced out of his own company after a power struggle with the board of directors. Imagine creating something from nothing, building it with your heart and soul, and then being told you're no longer needed. It was devastating, but Steve didn't give up. He later said, "Getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life." Seedling the comeback journey, Next and Pixar. After Apple, Steve started a new company called Next, focused on powerful computers for universities and businesses. Next didn't become a commercial hit, but it developed advanced technology that would later play a crucial role in Apple's future. At the same time, Steve bought a small animation company from George Lucas. That company was Pixar. Pixar created Toy Story, the world's first fully computer-animated film. It was a massive success, changing the animation industry forever. Steve Jobs became a billionaire again. More importantly, during this period, he rediscovered his love for creating, innovating, and leading. Red Apple: The Return to Apple and the Revolution. In 1996, Apple was struggling. The company that Steve had started was on the verge of collapse. Ironically, it turned to Steve Jobs for help. Apple bought Next, bringing Steve back as CEO. And that was the beginning of one of the greatest comebacks in business history. Steve Jobs simplified Apple's product line and focused on innovation. In 1998, Apple introduced the iMac, a computer that was not only powerful but also beautiful. It marked the rebirth of Apple. But Steve's vision went far beyond computers. He believed technology should be personal, intuitive, and delightful. Mobile phone changing the world. In 2001, Apple launched the iPod, revolutionizing the music industry. Then came the iTunes Store, which changed how we bought and listened to music. In 2007, Apple introduced the iPhone, a device that combined a phone, an iPod, and an internet communicator in one. It wasn't just a phone, it was a revolution. The iPhone transformed communication, business, and daily life worldwide. In 2010, Steve unveiled the iPad, proving that innovation never stops. Under his leadership, Apple became the most valuable company in the world, not just because of its products, but because of its philosophy. Think different. Battling illness with strength. But behind the scenes, Steve Jobs was fighting a rare form of pancreatic cancer. For years, he continued to lead Apple with passion, even as his health declined. He never let his illness define him. Instead, he focused on creating a legacy that would outlive him. In 2011, Steve Jobs stepped down as CEO, saying, "I've always said that if there ever came a day when I could no longer meet my duties and expectations as Apple CEO, I would be the first to let you know." Unfortunately, that day has come. On October 5th, 2011, Steve Jobs passed away at the age of 56. The world lost a visionary, but his impact lives on in every smartphone, every computer, every piece of technology that connects us. Glowing Star, the legacy of Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs' story is not just about technology. It's about vision. It's about daring to be different. It's about facing rejection, failure, and pain, and rising stronger. He once said, "Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Have the courage to follow your heart and intuition." Steve Jobs taught us that success is not about never failing. It's about never giving up. He taught us that innovation happens when passion meets purpose. And he proved that one person with a clear vision can change the world. Direct key lessons from Steve Jobs' life. 1. Follow your passion, even if the path is uncertain. 2. Failure can be your greatest teacher. 3. Think differently. Don't be afraid to break the rules. 4. Stay hungry, stay foolish. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Jobs started with nothing more than a garage, a dream, and relentless determination. He left behind a legacy that continues to shape our future. His story reminds us that success is not just about what we achieve, but how we inspire others to dream bigger, work harder, and never give up. Thank you.